Yes, my friends, I'm here having this symbol, my new symbol that I got from the highest and the greatest I am ever possible. The highest and the greatest I am ever possible. I'm going to be very short because my advisors tell me that people's attention span has now greatly reduced in our world of information technology when knowledge comes in gigabytes per second. So people don't have time to listen. Now here's my short story. I'm going to make it very short. I went to church when I was 3. I went to an evangelical church when I was 3 years old. I was taken there by my grandfather. My grandfather became an evangelical because his mother left the traditional apostolic African spirituality around the year 1900, before my grandfather was born. And then my grandfather was born in 1904. Yeah, my grandfather was born in 1904. So she must have left African spirituality around 1880. And then my grandfather, after my great-grandmother left African spirituality, my grandfather was born in 1904. And in 1926, my father was born. My father was a socialite. In 1930, my mother was born and my mother was a socialite. And then in 1962, I was born. And in 1962, I was born. 1965, I was inside the evangelical church. And I stayed inside the evangelical church for 45 years. I became a pastor inside the evangelical church for 25 years. I was a pastor inside the evangelical church for 25 years. I know the evangelical church inside out. I know evangelical theology inside out. I have studied evangelical theology for 30 years. I know the ups and downs. I know all the streams. Within evangelicalism, I moved to different streams inside of evangelicalism. So after 25 years of being a pastor, I got disillusioned. I had a burnout. I had a dark night of the souls. I began to question everything. God no longer made sense. Christianity no longer made sense. The dogmas, the beliefs of Christianity were no longer making any sense to me. And I then left the church. I went into secular employment. What took me into secular employment was an event that happened in 1988 in September. My daughter was born. My daughter was born in September 1988, and I didn't expect my daughter to be born. I expected the rapture to happen. After reading the book, 88 Reasons Why the Rapture Will Happen in 1988, it was going to happen on the Rosh Hashanah Jewish holiday in September. And I was quite convinced that the rapture was happening and my daughter was not going to be born. And guess what? The rapture did not happen, as you know. And my daughter was born. And I started questioning everything that I was taught. And I started moving away. I started moving away slowly. And I didn't want to hurt people in the church. But one day, I had to stand up in church and tell people, this is my last day here in this church. I'm not coming to church anymore. I'm resigning. And everybody cried. But if I didn't do that, you wouldn't be listening to me. If I didn't leave the church and started on a new path in 1988, and then in 1989, I was in secular employment and I became a businessman. And then came the 21st century. 21st century, I thought that it was going to be a great, a wonderful century, and the evils of religion were behind us. But guess what? 9/11 happened. 9/11 put me into a deep hole. 9/11 put me into a deep rabbit hole. I began to question again. All the questions came back. Now, if you can ask a lot of people today who are atheists, they will tell you that they became atheists because 9/11 brought questions back. That's why we talk about the four horsemen of the apocalypse, or the four horsemen of the new atheism. Richard Dawkins, Dan Dennett. These are my prophets. I'm talking now about my modern day prophets, postmodern prophets. Dan Dennett, who has just passed on at the age of 82. Richard Dawkins, who is in his 80s. Sam Harris, who is doing a wake-up podcast and making sense with Sam Harris. You can also follow Sam Harris. And then the other one passed on, Christopher Hitchens, who said if you wrote a book about God and religion poisons everything. Okay, now 2007, 17 August 2007. I have just come back from Europe. I just come back from Germany. I visited Auschwitz. I visited Poland. I visited all the places where the Holocaust had happened. And this convinced me that, man, and reading the book by Richard Dawkins, I got convinced that this thing called God, the BSs that go with God, the belief systems that go with this God thing, they've come to an end for me. So I go back to my condo in South Africa, and I've just finished reading Richard Dawkins' book, The God Delusion. And I'm in the shower, going to work in the morning. When I'm in the shower, going to work in the morning, then this thing, suddenly my whole shower becomes white. My shower room becomes white. And it gets filled with a cloud. It gets filled with a presence. And I hear a voice. I did not know what I know today. But I know that this voice came from the highest. It came from the highest and the greatest I am. And since then, I've had thousands of visitations. Thousands. Over the past 17 years, I've had thousands of visitations. I get animated. Even as I'm talking to you now. I'm feeling this presence. This presence is all over me. And even as I'm holding this stick, I see this stick as symbolism of this presence. Everything symbolizes this presence. This thing here that you see on my body symbolizes this presence. What you see here is a symbol of this presence. I've given this presence a name. Sibongile. On the 2nd of June, I was in water again. Those people who follow me, on the 2nd of June, the ancestors of Africa visited me. Madiba was leading them. And Madiba said, never again. I went into the sea and I did a video. And people started phoning me. They said, don't do that. Stop what you are doing. And Sibongile said, they don't know who you are. Forgive them. Forgive those who stop you. Forgive those who say you must keep quiet. They do not know. Forgive them because they did not know. For 17 years, I've had one evangelical theologian, one great learned evangelical theologian tell me for 17 years that you, Muzi, that voice that visited you on the 17th of August 2007 was from the devil. But I said to him, this voice didn't only visit me on the 17th of August 2007. This voice kept on talking to me. In many instances, in many hotels. I go overseas and attend conferences. This voice talked to me. I go to the Jesus Seminar Scholars, and this voice says, I led you to these people. I go to great theologians. One of them is Dr. Don Kupit. And this voice keeps on telling me I took you to Dr. Tom Kupik. I led you because you have a calling. You've been called to create a new great story for humanity. For humanity. A new great story is emerging. A new great story is emerging. I'm not imposing this on you, but it's my humble advice. You see, this also here, you see this? It's also symbolism. I cannot cut this beard because also it's a symbol of my Christhood. My symbol of my Buddhahood is the symbol of the Christ, the symbol of the Buddha. All of us, all of you, just wait. Wait, wait, wait. Your time is coming. Where I am, you will be also. Where I am, you will be also. You will say, now I see. Now I understand. Now I realize. Everything is beginning to make sense. I know it does not make sense at the moment. I know it does not make sense at the moment. But let me tell you, friends, one day it will make sense. Our future is Buddhist in nature. Let me tell you about the place where I am now. Here in Thailand, 97% Buddhist, 97% Buddhist, and 1.5% Hindu, 1% other religions, and less than 1% Christian. Thailand, there's 75 million people in this country, and 97% of them are Buddhist. Across Thailand and across all the countries that revolve around Thailand, there's more than 1 billion people. More than 1 billion people who belong to spiritualities that do not believe in God. More than 1 billion people belong to spiritualities that have never ever believed in God or gods. Taoism, Buddhism, Jainism, Shintoism, and many other spiritualities. And all these spiritualities, they come back and they merge. They don't fight. They're religions of peace. So there are similarities between Buddha and Abraham. If you begin to burn the midnight oil on the phenomenon of the Buddha, just burn the midnight oil on the phenomenon of the Buddha and compare the phenomenon of the Buddha with the phenomenon of Abraham. Look at the case of Abraham. Look at Islam. Look at Christianity. Look at Judaism. And you understand that Abraham brought a curse into the world. Abraham and Abrahamic religions brought a curse into the world. It's yin and yang. Yin yang. The Chinese taught me that all of life is about yin and yang. Dear friends, I know that there's a lot that I have to say to you, but I want to say to you, there's no God out there. I can't even point up there. But when I point up there, somebody said to me one day, Muzi, I saw you raising your hands. You don't believe in God. You say God does not exist. But I saw you in church. I saw in church you were raising hands. Why were you raising hands? If you say God does not exist, I saw you worshiping with us. And as you were worshiping with us, you were raising hands. Yet you say God does not exist. I say, hey, when I raise hands to the galaxies over there. I raise hands to this spaciousness. You see these galaxies, look at all that building. If you look at that building, just look at that building and see the spaciousness that appears, that building, as you see that building is appearing in space. It is appearing in space, and that space is what I call God. And up there are stars, there are galaxies, billions and billions and billions, trillions and trillions and trillions of galaxies. There's so much that I want to talk about. There's so much that I want to talk about. My son, my spiritual son, a brain surgeon, Thapelo Mpotwane. I spent a day and a half with Thapelo Mpotwane. He's now a brain surgeon. And now he tells me things about brain surgery. You fundamentalist theologians, you fundamentalist teachers of the law, I wish you can go and see my brain surgeon, Thapelo Mpotwane. He says when you come to his surgery, when you come to his theater, he will cut your head. He'll take a knife and cut your head open. And as he's cutting your head open, he will put anesthetics on you. The anesthetic doctor will put anesthetics on you. They will give you medication. And they will say to you, preach the way you preach in church. He says, as you preach, he, the brain surgeon, will be looking at your brain, examining with the instruments, examining what happens in your brain as you preach. And as he examines your brain, while you are preaching, he says, just continue preaching, continue preaching. Let's see your brain, let's examine your brain. And as you continue preaching, they will see what causes the tumors, what causes the brain cancer, what causes the stroke from the brain. He says, because as you preach, you're releasing the anger, you're releasing the antipathy, the hostility, the hell language. God is going to burn you. You're going to burn sinners in the hands of a wrathful God. Sinners in the hands of a wrathful and angry God. He says in brain surgery, what people used to call demons, we say they're casting out demons. He says when we take fundamentalists, we say to them, preach, preach. They say, preach. Your brain is open, they've cut your head, and you're preaching, and they're looking at your brain. What is happening to your brain as you preach? Your thoughts, your life is dependent on the things that you feed into your brain. Your brain. If they can scan fundamentalist scholars, if they can scan evangelical scholars and evangelical theologians, he says we'll see these symptoms in their brain. We'll see the tumors. We'll see the cancer symptoms. We'll see where they are going. Then I tell him, I said, since 2007, there's many evangelical pastors and evangelical theologians who opposed me, were very angry at me. And they said I was going to die and go to hell. But many of them are now 6 feet underground. He says, yes, if they came to me, I was going to open their brain. And I was going to say, continue talking about Moses. Continue saying Moses demonic. Continue saying Moses demonic. Moses the Antichrist. Moses this. And as they continue saying that, we'll see, look at what is happening in your brain. Look at what is building up in your brain. Look at the tumors, the cancer. Look at the shit that is building up in your brain as you engage in that negative energy. Get out of negative energy. A new story of the universe is birthing itself. A new story, a great new story. A story like no other story. A story like no other story, dear friends, is birthing itself. Namaste. Namaste.